Gyrfalcon's Hauberk just got an insane PvE buff. As of a recent hotfix, the exotic chest piece now functionally has 2 perks. The main perk we're focusing on is every time you leave invisibility, you get volatile rounds for 10 seconds. This has no cooldown and can be refreshed at any time, seemingly forever. Getting finishers while invis will still grant the original damage bonus and reserve overshields as before, but it's clunky, and the finisher animation eats half the bonus damage buff timer anyway, so we're pretty much ignoring this entire perk. For your subclass build, you have a bit of flexibility, but the main bread and butter will be Stylish Executioner. Every time you kill an enemy affected by a void debuff, you go invisible, refreshing your volatile rounds buff, which counts as a void debuff, allowing you to chain both perks infinitely. I like to use Vanishing Step as an easy way to get my initial chain going, and the extra fragment slot over Trapper's Ambush is nice too. Your fragments is where the flexibility comes in. The only fragment I would say is mandatory is Echo of Starvation to add Devour into the mix. I skipped Echo of Persistence because you're entering and exiting invisibility so fast, you don't really get to take advantage of the bonus duration. If you feel like Devour is falling off too often, feel free to put it back in anyway. Everything else is really just up to you. For mods, I strongly suggest Harmonic or Void Siphon to generate orbs consistently. A pretty standard Void Elemental Well build with Reaping Wellmaker and Font of Might will really help your Void damage shine. Elemental Armaments is a great way to make Void Wells without constantly having to dodge, and Well of Tenacity, Elemental Time Dilation, and Font of Wisdom are all good choices depending on how you want to play the class. The most obvious weapon of choice for this build is Collective Obligation. Now that we have a much easier and more consistent way to gain volatile rounds, Collective Obligation gives you an infinite loop of invisibility, volatile, and auto-reloading. Adding suppression and weaken into the mix feels really satisfying. Chaining your void debuffs through your weapons feels really good, and it's nice to have a build so heavily focused on guns again for a change. If you don't have the Valve the Disciple exotic, no problem. Most void weapons work great. Graviton Lance is a great alternative to add even more explosions into the mix. A funnel web with subsistence and a damage perk feels amazing in this build as well, and if you have a weapon with repulsor brace, this build will constantly apply overshields, but with how often you're proccing Devour, it seems like a little overkill. Unsurprisingly, void machine guns feel kinda ridiculous with infinite volatile rounds. I would also consider using a weapon with explosive light, but that would just be so you have a way to grab orbs for Devour without having to dump your super over and over. Since this build is so heavily focused on ad clearing, you may want to bring some heavy hitting special and power weapons, since your primary damage will fall a little short against high health single targets like elites and champions. Overall, this build is really easy to play with and will get you a ton of mileage in any activity with high mob density. The first thing that comes to mind is the new Heist playlist activity, and even with permanent 5 light level at disadvantage, you will shred through endless waves of enemies. It's fun, it's easy, it's flexible, it's just overall a really good build. That's all I've got today. Thanks for watching.